so welcome everyone. My name is Dave Holman. I have with me Pete Connell, my good friend, and we're fortunate to have Jonathan Trotta, the Republican candidate for first selectman in Guilford, with us. Jonathan is a three-term member of the Guilford Board of Finance. He's served for 12 years. He's also the chairman of the Republican Town Committee. So Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Dave. Thank you for being here for the introduction.
Thanks for
and Pete as well. Thank you.
You're welcome indeed.
Thanks for stepping up and running. Guilford needs a change. So anyway, you said in a previous interview that affordability was the #1 issue in Guilford. What other issues do you think are important?
So I think we're kind of bucketing the issues into like an accountability bucket and maybe a transparency bucket. And we're talking about some things that have happened over the year and in the past that we'd like to see not happen in the future. So I think, people mentioned a lot of things. They mentioned the methadone clinic. They mentioned some of the debacles that happened at the town meetings. The communication system is something that just comes up, I feel like, every year. People are like, why didn't I get a notification from the school to go vote for a referendum? Or why didn't the school include me on their list? Or I'm trying to think of some of the other things that have come up. The town will the school will tend to post letters from different groups that really have a partisan flavor to them on their websites, and it seems like it's kind of an unfair use of the property of the town to sort of present only one side of any issue, of a partisan side of an issue. So, talking to voters, that keeps coming up. I'm trying to think of some of the other issues that have come up.
Well, isn't the way to solve all these problems, or to make sure these problems don't occur, couldn't we do that by forming a charter revision commission?
Yeah, and I think those are ideas that are coming from RTC members, and they're like, how do we address this? Why don't we make a committee, and why don't we recommend charter revisions? So I do think that's an approach that could change things, and if we get it into the charter, I think then it's going to be in stone. And we're going to be able to say, this is how the town should operate. This is how the communication system should be used, for instance. So that's definitely the way to go.
When are these meetings held currently, John?
Oh yeah, this came up with several. This came up when I was walking around with a couple people here and there, and they were like, "I can't make it to these town meetings. They're in the mornings, I think."
8:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
on a Monday.
That's and especially if there's some kind of vote and it's it's a key town meeting, they really have to be held at night. And I think this goes hand in hand with when we've experienced a town meeting that's in a room that's really not appropriate. The budget referendum, the town budget meeting comes to mind almost immediately. We were meeting in the community center, and we need 300, I believe, for a quorum.
That's correct.
Right, and this room, I think it barely holds 300 people.
Yeah, right.
Add 10 people and you're over, the fire department wants to send you out of here. And I think that's happened, twice or 3 times?
It's happened at least 3 times.
We've gone, and it's been rescheduled. We had to go to the high school, and a lot of people did complain about that. Yeah, and that wasn't just our survey. That's just been happening since those meetings. People have said, I took the time, I got there, I can't believe that it was rescheduled. And it was unfair and inconvenient to people who did that. And I think the idea here is, if there's a charter revision, we're just going to lay it out there that for these meetings that require that many people, even if we don't get them, I don't think we get that quorum amount every time, but if we get them, Pete, we want to have a room where they can come, and they don't have to come to the meeting twice.
Yeah.
So that's a good idea for revision of the charter.
Right. The budget referendum meetings, the town meetings to discuss the budget.
Yep.
Require a minimum of 300 people to have a quorum.
Exactly.
In the past couple of years, they've been scheduled here at the community center in a room that holds 302 people.
Does
Right.
not make sense.
No, and this year, when we had the town meeting to discuss whether or not we should purchase the Guilford Mooring restaurant, 600 people showed up and the meeting was scheduled here.
That was huge.
So, you know, all
Yes.
their vote was canceled, in other words. And so all these meetings, if you're first selectman, they will always be held at the Guilford High School,
Yes,
correct?
that's already been brought up at several RTC meetings and with several voters and people who've shown up at these meetings, that's gotta change. That is an excellent idea for a charter revision.
Okay,
Yes.
how about, here's another thing, John.
Yeah,
Board and commission meetings, they're always going into executive session. Nobody knows what they talk about in an executive session, and they come back and they say, oh, you know, we're not gonna take this up, or whatever. Shouldn't everything that's discussed in in executive session that nobody sees,
Yep.
if they have a vote on something, shouldn't it all be in the public, and shouldn't the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, whoever, go on the record as being for or against something?
I do agree with this. This didn't really come up when I did some polling or walking around. I think most people aren't even aware of it, to tell you the truth. But it's not a transparent way to operate. Of course, on the flip side, executive session usually means they're talking about something that is private and sensitive,
But
and
the vote-
names can't be released. But yes, I think your point is valid, that the vote should be on record. Yeah, that would be an acceptable revision to me for the charter, absolutely. And, you know, I think part of our party's platform is that we want to form a commission, a committee, and we want to come up with these revisions and recommend them, and maybe even bring it to a special meeting. I think that's what the committee is kind of thinking at this time.
Yeah, all we're asking for
Yeah.
is transparency and communication. All right, last year, let's explore this need to go on the record further.
Okay,
Last year, citizens in Guilford submitted no less than 5 petitions to the Board of Selectmen about the methadone clinic.
oh, were these the requests for special meetings?
These were the requests for special meetings.
Okay, yeah.
Some of these petitions were signed by 450 residents, all right? That's how important the issue was to these people.
Okay, I think I know where this is going, and I'm 100% for just making that requirement. I mean, if you get enough signatures, especially a number like 400, I believe that the Board of Selectmen shouldn't just vote on whether to have that special meeting. They should be, by charter, be required to have that special meeting. Because if that many people call out attention to an issue and want to have a town meeting, I think for transparency's sake, that issue has to be heard in a public setting.
Right. So what happened, John?
Another good point. That was, I was very upset about that myself, because the effort that goes into that to pull those petitions and to find, you know, voters who really feel that seriously about an issue, that's a lot of effort, and it should have been recognized by our Board of Selectmen that these people in this area were affected by this and they want to talk about it.
Well, you know, what happened with these petitions, there was no discussion, there was no vote. What our current first selectman did was, he requested that our town council give him a legal opinion on what was requested in the petition, all right? And the town council came back and said, his opinion was, we shouldn't have a town meeting about this. So that there was no discussion, there was no vote, they just dismissed all the petitions, so it was.
It's definitely, as your first selectman, that is not a direction I would go in. I mean, obviously, it's within his purview to consult with the town attorney and find out, you know, what is allowed and what is not allowed. But I would prefer that the charter be updated and that the Board of Selectmen actually be just required if that many signatures are obtained. So that, yeah, I think we're sort of on some of the issues that came up that led our town committee to say, we need a committee to tweak the charter. You know, we need the charter to be a little more protective of citizens' rights to be heard. And I think that's one of your, the clearest examples, is that, it's in the charter already that the Board of Selectmen really should schedule that special meeting, but then they're allowed to vote it down and not schedule it. So I think we should go further with the charter and say that many signatures, the citizenry want to be heard.
Well, how many signatures do you think it should be? We can't have it set too low. That would be frivolous.
Yes, and that's where I struggle. If it was ridiculously low, like 30 people, you might have groups coming out of the woodwork every day
now
asking for
50.
Special meetings.
It's 50 now.
It's 50.
If a citizen wanted to submit a petition and they got 50 signatures, the Board of Selectmen takes it up. So what I think we should do is, 50 is too low, but 150.
I think I would go with some middle ground. So if it was 50, maybe the Board of Selectmen would retain the right to reject it.
Right.
And say it's an issue, so some people are involved and they want to be heard, but it's not an issue that's affecting enough of the town. But you're right, when you get up to, I don't know the magic number, maybe it is 150, maybe it's 200, but at a certain point, when enough the citizenry want to be heard and they want a special meeting, I think the charter should say that it is required that they schedule a special meeting.
All right, let's switch.
Now, I like to save money for the taxpayers, so I wouldn't mind if the special meeting maybe fell at the same time as another meeting and it became a combination meeting, just to save the money to set up meetings and do meetings all day around the clock every day. But they should be heard. There should be a forum. That's my opinion.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit.
All right.
I think something else that could be taken care of in the charter. Right now, according to our town charter, the budget referendum, town budget referendum is on the first Tuesday in April.
Oh, this one is near and dear to my heart. Yes. There's not really enough time even for the Board of Selectmen to analyze the budget. It's by the
the
budget.
Board of Finance.
I'm sorry, the Board of Finance. A lot of people don't realize that the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen give us their initial budget. And then they do have a few weeks to make their cuts, but then it comes along very quickly to the Board of Finance to only have a few weeks to analyze the final budgets for the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen and to make our cuts and do well. I'm going to say that often I'll recommend a cut, but for us to analyze it and decide if we think there's any slack in the budget or we think there's any waste. I think there's another reason, and that this has become so important to people is, and I'm sorry I have to go to the Wayback Machine a little bit, but I think it was last budget season, the state grants, we were not aware of the state grants till the final budgets came out for the board.
Exactly.
All right, yes, I remember this, and
exactly.
That was a travesty, by the way. And sitting on the Board of Finance, I recommended to my colleagues on the Board of Finance, I said, we just got, I'm trying to think of the number, I think it was 950?
953,000.
950,000 or so that we didn't expect, and I was like, this is a no-brainer. We just came up with a budget that was supposedly sort of well-crafted based on our predictions for revenue and our predictions for expenditures. And we just suddenly got almost $1 million of additional revenue, and the budget should have been adjusted down by $950,000. And if I remember, was this the year that the budget was rejected?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. I think I remember that they would not give in to that demand, that we reduce the budget by that amount and let taxpayers get the fruits of that extra revenue that we collected from the state. And that was a travesty, and that was unacceptable. And I think our efforts to tell our voters that the budget really should be lower. I mean, just on that alone, and among other things that we brought to their attention. I think that's why the budget was rejected. Is people looked at that, and that was a no-brainer. Pete, I sit on the Board of Finance with these people, and admittedly, there's differences about when we're talking about maybe something that's going to affect services, but this was just additional revenue that was unexpected, and it was just very clear that we should have just passed that right back to the taxpayer and said we didn't expect $1 million additional revenue.
The way it's set up now, John, the Board of Finance, at their March meeting in early March, they have to finalize the budget before it goes out to referendum, correct? And what happened last year was, at the Board of Selectmen meeting on March 18th, we found out that the town was gonna get $953,000 in grants, which weren't reflected in the budget. There wasn't time to change the printing or anything. The town should have told all the people that, hey, we're getting $953,000 that isn't reflected in the budget. They didn't do it. Now, when we rejected the budget, all right, when the town voted the proposed budget down first Tuesday in April, we went back, we had another town budget referendum, all right? But before that budget referendum, the Board of Finance had to propose a revised budget. At that meeting, we found out that the town was gonna get $650,000 of medical insurance savings that we didn't know when the original budget was reflected.
Yep.
So, a way to correct this would be to move back the date for the annual town budget referendum from the first Tuesday in April to the first Tuesday in May. Would you support that?
Yeah, I think I would, and I'm kind of recalling that most towns wait a little longer, if I recall.
We're the first ones.
Okay, I didn't even know we were the first, but I knew we were early.
We are the first ones in all of New Haven County.
And it makes sense. I think this makes sense. I think it's a win-win for everybody. You know, we're gonna know if we're gonna get any more state revenue. It'll give the Board of Finance, and maybe even the Board of Selectmen and Board of Education a little more time to analyze the budget. You know, sometimes you go through it that 10th time and you realize, hey, we don't really need this spending. Why not? Why not give us more time to analyze it?
Pete, you got a question for John?
You know, I was wondering about the federal grants when it comes to what is being taught in the school, that equity and what is the right term?
Oh, I think I know what you're referring to, this DEI and SEL,
Well,
yeah.
we're gonna get into that
Okay, I know exactly what
in
you're
another
Oh,
interview.
okay.
But John,
That is an important topic, Pete, so we're gonna do a video on it, I
Okay,
think. But
thanks.
I think David
That's
wants to
good.
talk more about the charter revision.
yeah.
Okay.
So here's another thing, John, that I think we can do.
All right?
Right now, when the town votes, they vote on one budget, which includes both the town and the school budget.
Yes.
Other
This
towns-
has come up so many times. in
Other
the
towns
past.
separate it so
Yep.
that they vote on the school budget separately and town budget. What do
Yep.
you think about that?
I think it makes sense, absolutely. Yeah, you know, why not break it into two pieces?
Yeah, because if somebody's concerned about the school system now, they're not gonna vote against the budget even though they think the town budget is too high because it's for the kids, right?
I think it's another no-brainer. And if, you know, if it requires a charter revision, so be it.
Okay, here's another thing.
Yep.
I like a lot of people in town. I don't have any kids in the school system, all right? I requested that I be put on the Guilford Public School email list.
Yes, yes.
And I was rejected because I don't have kids in the school system. I am a taxpayer. I am concerned about what's going on in the school system. Shouldn't I have a right to be on that email list?
My answer is absolutely. And I think I touched upon this when we first started this conversation. The communication system of the Guilford school system really doesn't belong to just the school system. It belongs to, you know, the entire community. And I think that anyone who contributes taxes to the school system wants them to operate with transparency and, you know, wants to know what the school's up to, what they're communicating to people. It's been going on for years. You know, early on in some of my involvement in town government, this issue came up almost immediately. And, you know, I realized that a lot of communications get sent out about the budget to parents. And don't get me wrong, parents need to know. I mean, they're concerned about how money will be spent and if it'll be spent well and smart on schools and it won't be wasted. But so do the other taxpayers. You know, we all contribute to education because it's paramount in this town. I mean, I think education is the most important issue in our town, and I think everybody who's a taxpayer, any resident of Guilford, should be able to receive these communications from the school. Yeah, this, you know, another good topic. That's come up with me, not in the walking campaign I'm doing now. I got a lot of answers taxes at the top of the list, but that has actually come up even when I did some walking campaigns when I was campaigning for the Board of Finance, and people brought that up to me.
Well, let's you know, let's stay on the communication thing,
Okay.
all right?
Yeah.
When, before the town meeting to vote on whether we should purchase the Guilford Mooring Restaurant, all right?
Okay.
The town of Guilford put up on our town website 5 letters in support of the purchase of the Guilford Mooring Restaurant.
Yes.
I contacted the Board of Selectmen, and I said, you know, since you put 5 letters in support of the purchase on the website, I have a letter that expresses the opinion that we shouldn't buy the restaurant. And I asked them to put it up, and I was refused.
Yeah, and don't get me started on open space, because I think we might have to do a whole video about it, but go on.
Okay, no, I'm just talking about, this is our town tax dollars paying for our town website, and they only put up letters in support of a purchase like that. The other thing that they did was they used the Guilford Mass Communication System, which they never do, to ask people to vote yes for this purchase. Shouldn't communications just be to alert people when the town meeting is going to take place, and not advocate one way or the other?
I would agree on. I'd have to see the messaging they used to notify about the mooring restaurant specific meeting. But I mean, I agree 100%. It has to have a nonpartisan message, you know, purely an announcement. And then, you know, any resource of the town, whether it's the green, you know, whether it's the broadcast system, you know, whether it's the school's communication system, it doesn't, you know, belong to a partisan party. It belongs to all residents. And the solution for the letters
Should be totally neutral, right? The website
maybe
and
the solution for the letters is just let both sides put the letters, you know, post letters so that they can be seen by both sides on whatever issue we're dealing with. And this, you know, this boils down to every use of the town. You know, should certain commercial entities be allowed to hold an event on the green, and some other entity does, you know, gets turned down, you know, for a similar application. And this is where, you know, the bar should be the same for everyone, regardless of political party. You know, that's just how the town should operate. Hey, you know, the word discrimination comes to mind when they're not operating that way. You know, it's never fair to favor one group.
All right.
So yep, these are great points, all great points, and the need for the charter committee comes into play where, you know, we'd like to see it, you know, be written into our charter that we're going to do these things.
Right, and all these problems with communication and transparency and participation, they can all be resolved if we change the charter.
I think so, and you know, it's always the dominant party is always kind of worried about this stuff, but it could easily be abused by our party, by the independent party. You know, this is just common sense to have a certain sense of fairness about how town resources are used to deal with issues that come up in town. Right. Absolutely.
Well, John, we got to wrap this up. But is there anything else you'd like to tell the citizens of Guilford?
I do think the charter is something we need to change. I'm trying to think about some of the bigger issues with the charter. I think my biggest issue is the minority rules. And the minority rules technically say that the dominant party should only have the majority of the number of seats on the boards. And that it does allow any other party to fill those seats. But I can't help but go back and think about what happened in 2021. And in 2021, and this is an issue you touched upon, it's not really the subject of this video, but it was an explosive issue. We were talking about the instruction for DEI in schools and social emotional learning and diversity, equity, inclusion. And for many people, and especially many people in our party, this conflicts with their value systems and they don't want this kind of teaching in school. And what happened was an amazing, momentous movement, political movement in our party. And our party energized itself because of this issue and ran 5 candidates for the Board of Finance. And this, I'm sorry, thank you for the board. I'm on the Board of Finance, so I get used to saying Board of Finance. But this was probably should have been one of the most greatest political victories in our town. We did have some incumbents who primaried, and they said, "Oh, this isn't such a big issue, and this is not what our constituency cares about," but it was. These 5 won the primary by a huge margin. I think they won about 75–80% of the vote. And it was very clear that our party, wanted representation on this specific issue as well as all the other issues at the school. And by the true spirit of the charter as it was written by our founders, these BOE candidates should have at least at the end of the process take on 4 seats. But my perception of what happened—
4 of the 9.
4 of the 9.
So, which is the minority rule.
The minority rule. And that's really the spirit of the minority rule. But what happened, and this is my opinion, and it's my perception, and if you actually look at our Guilford Independent Party and you read their website, I think you're going to see that it was very intentional, that this issue was important to some people who formed the Guilford Independent Party, and that is their prerogative. But at the same time, there was no opposing viewpoint to the dominant party, the Democrat Party. And what happened is we took a small party at the time. I think they're around 300 now. At the time, they might have been even less than that.
They were
maybe like in the 100 and something. And all of a sudden, because of the minority, the technicality of the minority rules are like this way, our 4 candidates were basically excluded from the process. And now there's no diversity of thought. There's no truly opposing views on the board. And we've reached a stage that we've been living in now for about 4 years where that board is unbalanced. And I fear that this could happen to the Board of Finance. The same possibility could happen. Now, I do not believe the charter can be written in another way. I'm sorry about that. There's a technicalness to the charter. But I think people should be aware of this. I think people should realize that sort of the spirit of the minority rules are being circumvented.
right.
And this is one of my biggest concerns about the charter. But I do not think it's going to require revision of the charter. I think the charter does have to be written that way. All parties can take these minority seats when they're available. But I think what happened in 2021 was not right. I don't think it was right that this small party has really stamped out of the diversity of thought of the second biggest political party in the town. And that's where we're at this stage of uneasiness where our boards are not balanced. And we're not getting the result that we deserve. When boards are balanced and they're really kind of a reflection of the true viewpoints in the town and in the community, I think we end up with a balance and some compromise if those voices are heard. But they're not being heard.
Right. There's no diversity of thought now on the Board of Education. Only you on the Board of Finance and very little on the other board.
I think at this point I'm the last voice on the Board of Finance.
Yeah. But
I think I'm probably the only one who's ever voted no to a budget on the Board of Finance.
Right, but a charter revision commission, and what would happen is any recommendations would go out to a town referendum to vote on it. But it could correct these other problems that we have in communication and transparency and participation. We want the maximum number of people in town to participate in their local government, and to feel confident in what's coming out of our local government.
Yep.
But John, this has been.
And I think these issues have been around for almost ever. And it's really this interview process and you trying to come up with some really poignant questions about what's going on with transparency. I think that's why we're here. And we're starting to say it's time to take action.
Well, it's not just me that's concerned about this. A lot.
It's the entire committee.
The entire town. The entire town is concerned.
I can't speak for the entire town, but when I run into voters, they're sharing these concerns almost every time I talk to them.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for tuning in.